Good morning,
Hey.
Joanne.
Hi. I'm gonna turn that
Good
up.
morning. Do you know yesterday's quote stayed with me all day.
What
That
was it again?
it said, sometimes I have bad days in recovery, but that's okay. I used to have bad years.
That's a good
It with
quote.
me all day long. And it's like, man. Anyway, today we have a different reading, but that one really stuck with me. Some of them really stick with me.
You know what? I had a really good day yesterday.
Did you? No
Yeah.
road rage?
No road rage in the home or
No
outside
road.
because I'm not even allowed to leave my house. So
Oh, that's true. We haven't had any road rage over here either.
good.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did
It's
you get out for a walk or?
I just worked out yesterday. I didn't get out for a walk because there was like just stuff that was going on and we just like it just didn't work out. So it was fine though. We went outside in our backyard. Luckily we have a backyard that we can
Yes.
spend some time in, and I got a lot of stuff done in terms of I've realized I need to start to like blitz things instead of doing them every day. So like yesterday I made a bunch of like snacks. Like so I made like roasted chickpeas and some muffins. And so and we had butter chicken for supper. It was so good.
That would not be one of my favorites. But John's jealous. All right, well, let's do our reading. So
Okay.
today is self-care. And if anyone is just joining us and is not familiar, we are reading from the book called Language of Letting Go, which is Melody Beattie
Mhm.
and Daily Reader. And it's basically about codependency. But we've realized that our codependency is very well expressed in an addiction to chaos creating or controlling fixing, and that it's not like that we can just stop doing it. We cannot stop doing it on our own power.
Yes.
So today, self-care. I don't precisely know what you need to do to take care of yourself, but I know you can figure it out. And that is from Melody Beattie's book called Beyond Codependency. Rest when you're tired. Take a drink of cold water when you're thirsty. Call a friend when you're lonely. Ask God to help you when you feel overwhelmed. Many of us have learned how to deprive and neglect ourselves. Many of us have learned to push ourselves hard when the problem is that we're already pushed too hard. Many of us are afraid the work won't get done if we rest when we're tired. The work will get done. It will get done better than work that emerges from tiredness of soul and spirit. Nurtured, nourished people who love themselves and care for themselves are the delight of the world. They are well timed, efficient, and divinely led. Today, I will practice loving self care.
Mm.
A short little one.
Nice. Okay. Well, what has been your experience with self-care, Vicky?
um,
By the way, doesn't this book talk a lot about self-care? Does it seem like that?
it does. And self care, I feel like, is like a bad word for me, or has been for so long. It's been like this bad word for me.
Mm.
And um, it felt selfish. I would feel guilty.
Mm.
Um, but what I've realized, I started to do last year when my work ended and I was taking time off, I started to, like, at this time of year, I started to sit on my deck and I would have a book and a blanket and my dog and our little fire pit, and I would like sit on the deck for hours. And it took me months to stop feeling guilty. And I realized, like, it's actually what I was supposed to be doing. I was actually supposed to be resting. I was supposed to be learning how to relax. And I was supposed to be learning how to quiet my mind, because my
Mm.
mind raced all the time. And like, whether you've been living in addiction, whether you've been living like, a frantic pace of like, workaholism, or, whatever it is. But like, if there's like this, for me, the word frantic was so well described, like my
Mhm.
internal condition. um, we have to like press this massive reset button and learn how to live a different way. And so for me, self-care, I think that that's kind of what that looked like. And um, sometimes I bought myself flowers. I like candles. Um, and I just know that I need to be slow sometimes. I need to say no sometimes. Um,
Do you think that you take better care of other people than you do of yourself?
Not necessarily, but it looks different, right? Like, I
Mm,
definitely think that what I did though was like I hyper focused on problems, or I hyper focused on like,
mm,
I have this obsessive mind and I can't turn off worry and obsession. And so I hyper focused on the future and like potential problems as opposed to like being present in today and being present in the moment. And so all my energy was totally being robbed from me. Um,
mm,
yeah.
mhm.
What about you for self care? Do you think that's something you're
So like I feel you in terms of being guilty. I think that or feeling guilty. I feel like I noticed a whole new level of like I think neglect for myself when I had kids. And like before I had kids, like it was just like I had so much time. And like life was good in many ways. And life with kids is good too. But I feel that having kids really showed me and magnified, and then being in a pandemic with kids has
Mhm.
really showed me and magnified like my deficiencies and how I'm not efficient. And self-care really does aid in that. Like it's always that like if you don't have it, if your cup is empty, how do you give water to anyone? You
Mhm.
can't. You need to fill it on a daily basis. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think for every person, because I feel you, I always thought it was so selfish. I always pictured self-care like I'm the person that demands the time from everybody, and I
Yeah,
will have a bath with a glass of wine, and I will do da, 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 da. And I never resonated with that. Like I have a tiny bathtub. I don't drink wine. It was like, how do I do self-care then? I also don't want to go and like shop like crazy and spend money I don't have. Like, what does
right.
this look like? And so it's like we've talked about this, I think, before, but like it's like responsibility for myself. So like self-care for
Mhm.
me, like practically looks like moving, like getting exercise once a day in some form or fashion. It looks like
Yeah,
putting good food into my body. It looks like doing my devos every morning. It
right.
looks like spending time with God, having meditation. It looks like, looking outside of myself, like you said, like my mind is filled with Joanne, 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 Joanne. And that's just selfishness. Self care is not selfishness.
And to go kind of like to a deeper level, um, taking care of myself means that I'm not relying on other people to be responsible for my feelings and my
That's
emotions and my well-being, right?
hmm
And so I think, if we want to slap a label on, codependency often means that if you're not okay, I'm not okay. And
hmm
that for me, like, way back in the early years, I'm living with a drug addict. That was like, uh, a goal for me of like, okay, how do I learn to be okay if he's never okay?
Yeah.
And so what does that even look like? And so, and then he got sober, and then, things were even harder. But as the years progressed, I didn't realize the level to which I required my husband to meet my internal needs. I needed him to like pour into me constantly. And it was never enough.
Yeah.
It was never enough. I was never satisfied. I mean, for moments, but I just mean like on a consistent basis. We never got to this place where like, I was just okay.
Yeah.
I just needed more from him. And I had all these emotions and feelings, and he needed to kind of dance around them, and he needed to like make me feel good about myself. And he needed to reinforce that the things that I, contributed were so valuable. And like that is not self-care. If
Mhm.
if I'm requiring a lot from the people around me so that I can be okay inside,
Yeah.
I'm setting myself up for failure, and I'm setting everybody up for failure. And so now we're walking through this field of like little landmines constantly, because I thought, well, things aren't really that bad.
Mm.
It's just occasionally, but it's like, who wants to live walking through this field of landmines?
Yeah. Yeah. What a funny thing denial is, hey? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, look, something blew up.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. It's not a
Yeah.
big deal. Oh, look, another thing blew up. Oh, they're not really
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and I thought, I really resonated for a period of time with like the highly empathetic people, the highly sensitive. I'm just highly sensitive. I'm just highly empathetic. Like
Mm.
like, no, I'm actually looking for something outside of me to like hyper focus on so that I don't have to pay attention or be responsible for my own feelings and internal condition.
Mhm.
And that was a dangerous, it's a dangerous place to live in, because if my emotional state is like constantly getting up here, yeah, it's like,
Mm.
it was a vicious cycle. So self-care for me means a real awareness of what's going on inside of me.
Yeah.
And I don't know if yeah, I think I did talk about this yesterday in our chat, but feeling the other day like I was sad, and then stopping to say like, okay, God, like what's actually going on inside of me right now?
Mhm.
What am I actually feeling? What's happening? And then realizing like, oh, I feel sorry for myself. This is self-pity.
Mm.
Okay, so the medication for self-pity requires I need to actually go look outside myself. So go for a walk and phone someone, or uh, create something, or clean something, and
Yeah.
then but the medication for sad is different. What am I sad about? Why am I sad? Oh, we have a real thing to be sad about right now. So do I actually need to like talk about that with someone? Do I need to talk about sorrow? Do I need to grieve? Do I need to remember? Do I need to tell funny stories? And so the medication for envy, if I'm looking inside myself and I'm like, oh, actually, I'm comparing and I'm feeling envious, well, then there's a different medication for envy, right?
Mm.
That might be like, get off Facebook, get off Instagram,
Mhm.
because it's feeding something really negative inside of me. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I think it's important to be ask those questions and ask God and invite God into it, and then look at like, okay, so now what do I do about it? Which is like, what's the medication?
Well, I think that the key shift is that, like, you start in a place, I think, often of practicality, especially if you've never taken care of yourself,
Mm,
or really practiced this. It's like sometimes it's just like, yeah, like go for a walk, read a book, do something that brings you joy, or do something that, whatever.
mhm,
But like the whole, I think, thing at the end of the day is like you can do lots of things for yourself and then it just becomes selfishness again. I think that it's like, what are you plugging into? Self care is plugging into God.
right.
Um, and that looks like different things. Like it does look like still going for a walk, or it still looks like connecting with a friend, or it looks those things. But like, I love that my sponsor, her sponsor, will say to her, like, she'll go to the grocery store and be like, Lord, which brand of bread should I buy today? And like, it's so silly, but it's so, I think, so often just like looking for that constant conscious contact with God,
Right.
of just being like, these little things matter. And like, the type of bread doesn't matter, but like it's just the like willingness to ask God lots of different questions and interact with him. And I think
Mhm,
that that's like, that really is like, I think you touched on overall, but just like to name it is like, that's self-care, is
mhm,
to okay, God, like this is what I'm feeling, or this is what's going on, or like, hey, I'm lacking, I feel imbalanced, what would you have me do, how would you have me be? And to me, I think that that is the sustainable self-care that does last. It really, like, it keeps you, the good book, the Bible, talks about just like living water that, you'll never be
mhm,
thirsty again. And
mhm,
so if your thirst is constantly just like connected and met in God, I think, and it sounds so overly spiritual, I know, but I think it's just, it really, I think when you start to live it, it makes sense, because you're like, oh yeah, like that's how, yeah. So I think if
so
you're,
good. That was really good. Thank you so much. And I actually feel like if someone's listening and that really speaks to them, or they want to know more, um, our Ashes to Rubies podcast, which is, I don't know, apparently wherever you can get podcasts, yesterday,
Spotify.
um,
Sorry.
John uploaded your talk from our meeting yesterday, which I think would really speak to more about that topic. And so I would
Hmm.
invite anyone, oh, maybe it's on the YouTube channel and the Facebook page also. But yeah, yesterday you talked about spiritual practices, and that's really feeding our spirit, right? And so it
Mhm.
brings this deep, deep level of self-care. And so, yeah, I would just invite anyone to listen to that. Thank you so much for joining us and being here. And I'll see you again tomorrow.
See you
Enjoy
tomorrow.
your day.
until John's face resumes, I'm here.
He's moved from like strictly paralysis to like a pain. It's painful now. So that's, yeah. Thanks, Joe.
All right. Bye, Vicky.